let's begin to look at this. Uh-oh, I slipped one in on y'all. All right, let me go ahead and explain it, but I did want this to be there. So, this is new. This came out this week. This is called Black History Month of 2019 Special Edition. USA Today paper. This is a newspaper, multi-million dollar, probably billion-dollar corporation, right? What do they have on there? People of color. Back in the early 1900s, it looks like, 1920s and 30s. But look what it has on there. Exodus. Right. How black migrations changed our nation. Now, let me show you something that I know that you can't see from there. And it talks about the article and what's in there. Right here it says 400 years. A newspaper, a major voice in this country, has it plastered as a article, a major article, special edition, and right on the front, Exodus. Then down below, it has several listings of what's going on in the reading. 400 years is the first reading. Now, not date setting, but setting the record straight that people are looking. So we need to open our eyes and begin to get ourselves ready. This is what's happening for us. This is why I told y'all, the battle is already won.
Oh, yeah.
We're waiting on deliverance, and so victory is coming. I'm truly excited because I'm looking at a generation of people, not that because they're saying so, not because I've been teaching it for so long, but I see it. And I'm dreaming, and I'm telling you, I'm having dreams that I know have to come from Yahweh. I said it a couple of weeks ago in one of my dreams, and I'm not going to go into it, but there was one of my dreams where there were a bunch of young men who all had chauffeurs, and we were gathered at some place that I've never been. But they all had chauffeurs, and among the chauffeurs, they had brass band or brass instrument, and one in particular was called a baritone. As brass players, anybody who know anything about brass, you know it's not the trombone, but it's a little bigger than the trombone. It's next to the sousaphone. Sousaphone is the lowest tone. Baritone is the next to the lowest tone. But anyway, there were many instruments or many baritones and chauffeurs lined up, getting ready to blow the sound. And then the next dream was there was 2 trombones. This is a different dream. There were 2 trombones, and they were both silver. So for me, when I woke up, I'm like, wait a minute, those trombones were silver. And why trombones? Maybe that's what's familiar to me. I come from that brass band background. That's what I grew up doing. Me and Rabbi too. And so, just like you see Ephraim along with us now as a musician, that was me and Rabbi too, as he was a little guy. I mean, he was so, and he played the baritone, he was so little that the baritone was bigger than him.
Yes.
And like myself, when I started playing the sousaphone, I was so little they had to stand me up in a chair. And it was twice my size. But, you know, we both had to hang on to what we were, you know, capable of doing. They pushed us up to something that you know, was like, okay, you can handle that. All right, so we did. But anyway, my dreams are saying something. And so am I trying to say, without a doubt, you know, we're out? No, I'm not trying to do all of that. But what I am saying is we need to get ready because the Messiah is on his way. Yes. I feel that this is the generation that will see the return. Now, y'all know when I start talking about generation, there are some other scriptures that we gotta give consent to as well. There's a 10-year window when you talk about generation. There's 70 years, and then he said with strength, 80 years. Psalms chapter 110 verse 4. So I'm going to leave that alone because I got to get from here as well. But anyway, there's some things moving in the earth, and people are watching and waiting. People are beginning to understand that whether we choose to believe it or not, the prophecy of Moshe is still viable to this day. Yahweh said, I will make them believe forever. And so here you have a generation of people who are now beginning to return to the teachings of Moses.
Yes, Father, thank you.
To the teachings of Moshe, the Torah.
Yes.
And Yahweh is being proven right. I will make them believe forever. And here we are. We're doing Passover. We're waiting now just a few weeks from now. We're going to enter into the feast days of 2019.
Hallelujah.
In just a few days from now, we will begin to do the things that when they came out of Egypt, that they were doing.
Thank you, Father.
They came out of Egypt.
Yes.
At the request of Yahweh.
Yes.
Let my people go. He changed it just a little for us. Now he's saying, come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her wrath.
Thank you, Father.
So this nation is going to deal with the wrath of Yahweh. Yes. There's no doubt in my mind.
That's for sure.
But what about us? We're here. That's why he seals his elect. Did he not do that with Noah and his family? He sealed them. He put them in a place of protection. He sealed them. When they went into Egypt, he sealed them. He put them into a place of protection. When they asked, what is your occupation? Tell them we are shepherds. Because a shepherd is an abomination to them. So they put all the abomination in one place, Goshen, a place of protection. So they wasn't scattered throughout Egypt. They were all there in one place. And when it came time for them to come out, 430 years later, they all came out as sisters and brothers. They all came out as relatives. They all came out as the 12 tribes. They all came out.
Hallelujah.
But the battle was already fought before they even went in.
That's right. That's right.
Because Joseph told them, Yahweh will certainly visit you here.
Yes.
And so I'm going to go ahead and get into this message today. And so I've started on this before. And so this is where I left my notes or my PowerPoint. And so now I want to get back through it. And so I want to show you some of the things that I were not able to go into at that time. So I'll be able to move through this a little quicker. All right, so Joel chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, then verses 10 and 11. Blow a shofar in Zion and sound the alarm in my set-apart mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the earth tremble, for the day of Yahweh is coming. For it is near, a day of darkness and gloom, and a day of clouds and thick darkness, like the morning clouds spread over the mountains. A people many and strong, like that of whom has never been. nor shall there ever be again after them, to the years of many generations. Wow. The earth shall tremble before them. The heavens shall shake. Sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars withdraw their brightness. And Yahweh shall give forth his voice before his army. And his camp is very great. For mighty is the doer of his word. Mighty is the doer. Not hearers only, but doers. For the day of Yahweh is great and is very awesome. And so, fear is something I want you to keep in your mind for a moment. Joel chapter 2 still and verse 28 through 31. And after this, it shall be that I pour out my spirit on all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men dream dreams, your young men see visions, dreams. And also on the male servant and on the female servants I shall pour out my spirit in those days, and I shall give signs in the heavens and upon the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke. The sun is turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of Yahweh. And it shall be that everyone who calls on the name of Yahweh shall be delivered. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there shall be an escape, as Yahweh has said, and among the survivors whom Yahweh has called. Among the survivors.
Yes. Yes.
From what generation?
Yes.
They survived.
Hallelujah.
So Israel is among the survivors. I want to tell you that already, because the bloodline still survived. So among the survivors who Yahweh has what? Called. And Revelation will tell you more about that. So I'm going to kind of just move and stay right here with what we're talking about. So after the time of deliverance, that's what this is talking about. And after this, it shall be that I pour out my spirit on all flesh. We're not there yet. We do know that the Holy Spirit has now come. That was fulfilled during the time of Yeshua, and the Holy Spirit came in as a rushing mighty wind and filled the room where they all were sitting, right? That was fulfilled. But now he's talking about something else of the same.
Hallelujah.
I pour out my spirit on all flesh. That was in Jerusalem, those who had gathered for the holy feast days.
Yes.
Now he's talking about the world.
Yes.
He's going to pour out his spirit.
Thank you.
Can y'all see this is a second round getting ready to happen?
Hallelujah.
Your sons and daughters shall prophesy. Right now, everybody's waiting on a word from the prophet. He says, your sons and daughters, your sons and daughters, your sons and daughters are going to prophesy, and it's going to come to pass.
Yes.
This is everybody? No, this is Israel. Israel. This is who he's talking to and about. Now, let's continue. It says, and I shall give, second bullet, and I shall give signs in the heavens and upon the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke. The sun is turned into darkness and the moon into blood.
Yeah.
When will that happen? Before the great and awesome day of Yahweh.
Right.
So when you see this, it's a sign that what comes next is the awesome day of Yahweh. Staying with the reading. It only makes sense to me. Before. So, are we seeing columns of smoke? Are we seeing darkness? Are we seeing gloomy days? We'll continue. Let's look at some of the signs and wonder. This is a current sign of things that is happening and just happened. What you see on top is a series of solar eclipses, but not total solar eclipses. In the middle, here and here, these are total solar eclipses, which will, this one, the 2015, will be right here in the middle of Sukkot and Passover for 2 years consecutively. And so what is happening? Starting with December 10th on the end, December of 2010. Let me get it correct. June of 2011, December of 2011, April of 2014, Passover, on the day of Passover. This is when we celebrated Passover, on this date. And then Tabernacles of 2014, and then Passover of 2015, and Tabernacles of 2015, the supermoon, if you can see where I'm at, and then 2018, January of 2018, and then July of 2018, and then January 21st, just a few weeks ago, we had another supermoon. And so right here, I was looking at the 4 blood moons, the tetrad, the 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 supermoon, right? Those 4 right there had my attention. It wasn't until just a few weeks ago that I pulled up some more. I'm like, let me go back and see how many blood moons we've had in a span of time. I know what time of year, the span of years that I was looking for. I was looking for a succession of 7 years. How many did we get? To my surprise, we got 10. And my focus was only on the 4. I'm like, you know what, Yahweh's getting ready to do something. But there was more to come. 2014, I'm like, okay, all right. I'm thinking we out of here. We came back home. And I'm like, okay, Yahweh, have it your way. 2014, my wife and myself, we took both of our cars because we didn't know. We were like, okay, well, we better take both of the cars just in case we need, somebody needs a car. And at that time, I knew Lori might need to drive one. And I'm like, we'll take both of the cars. That way, if we have to leave, we got both of the cars. And whoever needs another car, we can kind of shift it around or whatever. And however we needed to do it. So that's what happened. But we came back home, minister. We came home. I'm like, okay, Yahweh, all right, I'm with you. Whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, whatever you want to do it, I already know it's going to be done. Y'all see what I'm saying? I already know the end story. We're in the story, but I already know the end, E-N-D of the story, that we win, that we're delivered from this land. This is the land of our captivity. I'm happy about leaving here. We just haven't done it yet. I'm happy about deliverance. And when it happens, I'm going to be smiling. Hallelujah. Okay, so there's more to this, but I want to leave there and show you another sign and wonder. In 2017, now y'all know I went all the way back to 2010 and showed you some signs and wonders, right? And some things all the way to January 21st of 2019, right? The last supermoon just happened, right? There's another one coming this month. I think it's the 19th of this month. And then, but anyway, let me kind of move on. In 2017, August 21st, some may remember this, there was a solar eclipse. This is the one that I was telling y'all that was in the middle, right? Of all of those blood moons. They went ahead and just put all the blood moons together, but in the middle of it was a dark sun. So he said dark sun and blood moons, right? So it happened. And so August 21st, 2017, there was a solar eclipse, not lunar, which is your blood moon, but a solar eclipse, dark sun, that went across 12 states. Here is the proof right here. It came out from California side, the West Coast, ended through South Carolina. And people began to look at this and say, wait a minute, there's something special about this. There's a strike going through the United States. And it's hitting 12 states. But wait, it's not over. 2024, they're saying there's another one that's supposed to be coming April 8th, 2024, coming the other way. Is the United States being X'd out? Is it being judged? I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but it tells me that I need to keep my eyes open on what Yahweh is doing. Y'all know we're in 2019, right? That's 2024. I told you I wasn't trying to set no dates, but I need for you to look ahead with me. I don't know where we're going to be. I'm just going to be glad to be there when we get there. All right, let me keep going. All right, so signs and wonders. This is why I keep my eyes peeled on the skies and what's going on in the earth and what's going on with us as a people. All right, let's break into Exodus and go back to Moshe and look at those signs. And I'm going to ask you to remember that I've already went through this, my last teaching. So I'm going to move through it at a faster pace. And so the rod that becomes a serpent. And Moshe answered and said, and if they do not believe me, nor listen to my voice and say, Yahweh has not appeared to you, speaking to Moshe. And Yahweh said to him, what is that in your hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moshe fled from it. And Yahweh said to Moshe, reach out your hand and seize it by the tail. So he reached out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand. So in other words, what he came there with was what? A rod. And to a man in the desert, that's his authority. That I walk these grounds and anything that comes against me, get the rod. It's his rod of authority over the kingdom of the earth, the kingdoms of the earth, the animal kingdom. Any serpent, any insect, anything will get the rod. But how many remember when you was a child that you got the rod too when you act up? Mom and dad don't spare the rod, right? And so the rod became a serpent. It's a sign. This is the first sign. What's the first sign? Mount Sinai. All right, so moving through. I told you I'm not going to stay on it. So the rod became the first sign, which is Mount Sinai. This is why we do Passover. This is why we do unleavened bread. This is why we do Feast of Weeks. This is why we do Shavuot. This is why we do Yom Torah, Yom Kippur, Yom Sukkot. This is why we do what we do, because there was a promise made at Mount Sinai and said, you shall keep these. And the first of these, Leviticus chapter 23, is the Sabbath. That's why we are here today, because it's the seventh day of the week. And we made a promise. Okay, we wasn't there, I know. But for those who are here today, standing here, and those who are not, guess what? We were not. So we were entered into a covenant, an oath, and a promise that many people still to this day, because of tradition, desire not to keep. Because we're no longer under the law of Moses. Not the way I see it. All right, so let's go. Exodus 4, chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. So that they believed that Yahweh, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yishak, Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob has appeared to you. And Yahweh said to him again, now put your hand in your bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom, and when he took it out, and see, his hand was leprous like snow. So you know now we're going into the second sign. Hand came out white like leprous, like snow. Right? All right, so verses 7 through 9. And he said, put your hand in your bosom again. So he put his hand in his bosom again, and he drew it out of his bosom. And see, it was restored like the other flesh. And it shall be, if they do not believe you, nor listen to the voice of the first sign, they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice. Yahweh still speaking to Moshe. This is before he went to Egypt. This is when he was out there with his sheep, feeding the sheep. As he was feeding the sheep, he saw a bush on fire, and it wasn't consumed. And from the bush, a voice spoke to him. This is what we're reading. And of course, when you go back through this in the later chapters, now he's going through it with Israel. He's telling them that we're getting ready to be delivered. They get happy, they don't get delivered. And then Pharaoh, he put some more tasks on him. He said, look, y'all go ahead and make your own bricks now. Oh, by the way, you got to find your straw too. So that's not what we're looking at now. That's a little later. That's all I'm trying to share with you. That I'm showing you something that was ahead of time, but it was repeated. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, Moshe, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on dry land. And the water which you take from the river shall become blood on dry land. And so we know that that was the first plague. The water was turned to blood. So today when they teach it traditionally, that happens generations ago. That happened centuries ago. We don't have to worry about that. We're no longer under Moshe. We're under grace. Look, you don't even have to keep the Sabbath. Keep meeting us here on Sundays and bringing your tithes. And, you know, the seventh day, we'll just wipe that out. And so that's what taking it away looks like. Let me continue. I don't want to stop here because I really want to get through this. Wait a minute, what's this? This is water, which looks like flood, rain, in a commercial setting, red as blood. And so this is in Bangladesh that happened in 2016. Uh-oh, this is United States, in Ohio. Zanesville Lake, a park, it turned blood red. In 2013, oh, here's China. The Yangtze River, September 6, 2012. Now, why did I show you all of these? That's going to be the end of these pictures. I wanted to show you that across the earth, if you go out there and look for rivers and lakes and things that have turned blood color, all around the world it happened. I just pulled out 3 examples, and I strategically got different years so that you can see this has been happening. And so I was thinking about, okay, maybe I need to get one from this year as well. But what I wanted to do is make sure that I spread it out so that you can see other countries as well as the United States. So I foregone some of the dates that I could have got. And I said, you know what? I got to show that this happened here in the United States. But what front news did it hit? Who was putting this on the news and saying, we are seeing rivers and lakes and things that are turning blood red? Where's the major news, the CNN? Where is the major news and broadcasters that begin to say, you know what? The song of Moshe is being sung again, and we need to listen. No, but what they've done is try to explain it away. You know, there was a chemical company that was not too far from there, and they were throwing away their chemicals, and it got into the riverbeds. And that's a major waterway, China. Major imports and exports. You don't get no bigger than that. That's the biggest one to China. China has over 1.5 billion people. They are a major economic entity in the world. And the biggest import-export river turned red. Tell me that Yahweh is not trying to tell us something. I'm seeing it. And I've been seeing it. And so let's just kind of tally this up. And so here's the three signs, just in case you haven't been following each one. Here they are. The rod that became a snake, Moshe's hand that turned leprous like snow, telling us what? The color of it. But it was a disease of leprosy. Oh, well, you know, it's been eradicated. We don't have that in the earth anymore, so we don't have to worry about that. We still got disease, plenty of them. Right. We're on all kind of medications to prove that. Yeah. All right, so let's keep moving. So if they don't believe you, take some water from the river, from the lake, and pour it on dry land, and it shall become what? Blood. So as I begin to analyze these, I'm thinking about what are these three signs telling us? What? Because there's not a lot of explanation other than what Moshe went through. Picked the snake back up. It was a snake. He was right to run. He was fearful for what was at his feet. He ran. When Yahweh sent the snakes in on the children of Israel in the wilderness, there were snakes all around them. What did they do? They feared for their life. But here's the sign. He said, pick the rod up, and the snake up by the tail, and it became a rod. It became his authority once again. And so he was in command of it. Yahweh gave him the instructions. He followed it, even though he was afraid. Don't let what you fear chase you away from the instructions of Yahweh. Because the fear of Yahweh is what? The beginning of knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Psalms have all three of those. And so continuing on, with his hand turning leprous. Now I can really stay here for a while, but I'm going to forego that. But if his hand turned white and he was fearful of that, what color was it before it turned white? It says like snow. If it was already white like the pictures we see, then that's not a big change. But it had to be something drastic for him to fear the change that took place in his hand. Put it back, it was restored like his other flesh. I'm telling y'all, we're getting ready to be restored. Hallelujah. We're getting ready to be restored. So, I'm going to run from it. I'm going to total this up. Everything there was fear. That was my sum total. That's what I came away with. Now, you might come up with something else, but as I studied this out, I'm like, everything brought him fear. Everything. And so, it was something that became different. His hand became different. The rod became different. The ground became different. Everything became different. And so right here is where my search began. And so the second sign, the first sign is Mount Sinai. The second sign is disease. We are afraid of disease because it kills us. The first thing we want to know is the stages of death, stages, and I brought in stages of death connecting to Rabbi 2, stages of life. And so death is not always dead, graveyard, right now. Death is, you get gangrene and don't do nothing. It's going to lead you to the grave. You get cancer in certain places. People always want to talk about, I beat that cancer, I beat that cancer. But you know what? There are certain diseases that'll take you out. And so that's the second sign, that when his hand became diseased, he was fearful of it. And so let's take an infant child. We have some children here. Children don't know fear. They learn fear. The smallest baby we have no understanding of fear. No understanding of anything. All they know is feed me and keep me dry. You put it in, I'll send it out. Keep me dry. Change my diaper, because you're going to know about it. And so they begin to learn that cycle. And so as they get a little older, begin to walk in different things and begin to fear or learn other stages of death. Definitely by the time they become school age, they've been taught some things by their parents. Don't go into that street. Look, if you're out here playing on your tricycle, that tricycle do not leave this sidewalk. I don't care if you got a circle through the grass and it don't feel good, but that tricycle do not go in the street. I don't care how good it feels. It feels like a good smooth riding surface, but you do not let those three wheels, not one, not half, not even a spoke, but not touch that black tar up there. And so that's the parents beginning to teach them fear. Why? Because mama or daddy is going to give you some pain if you do it and do it again, and it seems that you're being rebellious. I'm not going to spare the ride. And so that's where the child began to learn, does it bring me pleasure or does it bring me pain? If it brings me pain, I ain't going to do that one again. But disease is not always visible. Sometimes it's invisible. If a person have inward blood disease or things that are going on inside them, you may never know. But here's the thing. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. That if you don't get what is wrong with you in check, it's going to take you out. So you're not dead in a grave. It's not, dead is not always death, dead in the grave, but dying from the day we are born, we're dying. And so what Yahweh is trying to do is get us back to eternal life. So there's a promise that hangs on keeping the Sabbath, the holy days, and following the ways of Moses. There's a promise that's connected to doing these things. And so Yahweh said, I will fix it so that they will believe you always. And here is a group of people who are all witnesses that now that we have come back into the truth, No longer will we accept anyone saying, you know what, my grandparents, they did it. They didn't keep the seventh day as Saturday or the Sabbath in that way. But, I always thought Sunday was the Sabbath. And you know what, now that I know even better or different, you know what, if it was good enough for my grandparents, it's good enough for me. That's many people's testimony. People you know. So let's move on from here. I think we got the point here. Revelation chapter 12, verse 7. Then jumping down to 9 and 10. Let's begin to connect the two. And there came to be fighting in the heavens. Michael and his messengers fought against the dragon. And the dragon and his messengers fought, and the great dragon was thrown out, and the serpent of old called the devil, Satan, who led all the world astray. All the world. Are we in the world? Yes, we are. We're just not of the world. He was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. So this is a time that Hasatan, or Satan, is thrown out from heaven. But according to this reading, Revelation chapter 12, there's still another 10 chapters after this. We're not going there, but just showing you there's still more to this story here. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now have come the deliverance and the power and the reign of our Elohim and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers who accused them before our Elohim day and night has been thrown down. So what we are reading now is an account of Yahweh, Yohanan, John the prophet, is being shown something into Yeshua. Yeshua has already been crucified. He has already risen. And now he's given us a witness of his return. This is straight up about his return. And there came to be fighting in heaven. Michael and his messengers fought against the dragon. Who is the dragon? The serpent. Remember what we just finished reading about the rod and the serpent? Well, this serpent is being thrown to the ground. The rod is being thrown to the ground. Revelation. And so let's continue. The serpent of old, the devil, just in case you may not know exactly who that is. And so he says, now has come the deliverance. We can't say deliverance has already happened, but the UN wants you to think that what they have built in the land of Israel is it. They received deliverance. Those people don't even look like us. Now, they might look like the snow part, but they don't look like us. And so I'm just going to go ahead and lay it on out there. Until this all takes place and is fulfilled, we have to still look at the fighting in heaven and Michael and those who are with him defeat Hasatan, and from that point he will never be able to go back into the heavens. And so while I'm not going into some things that I've already taught on, far as the 1260, the 1290, the 1335, all of these are revelation. You got to go into Daniel to get more of an explanation of what those timelines are and what they are quickly. They are judgments of the nations, and how long, because remember, they ask, how long will these things go on? Those who were under the disciples, they said, when are you going to return? Matthew chapter 24. This is what they were asking about. What we are being given here, this is what they were asking about. And so Then there was another group that was in heaven, and they asked the same question. They said, how long before you revenge our blood? Those who were under the altar in heaven. And he said, not long. Wait just a little while longer. And so these are the numbers that he gave us. When you see these things happen, know that the 1260, the 1290, the 1335 are very significant. And we'll understand it. Yeah, we'll understand it by and by. But we've been digging into this. That's all I'm saying. We've been digging into this stuff. I've been teaching on these things for years. So let's continue. And we're actually close to the end of this. And so now let's begin to understand Leviticus chapter 14, verse 54 through 57. This is the Torah for any infection of leprosy and eruption. And for leprosy of a garment, a house, a swelling, for a scab, a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the Torah of leprosy, the law of leprosy. Okay, so they recognized when they saw a leprous man or woman, one of the things, the law on that was they had to walk around and cover their upper lip and say, leprosy. Unclean, unclean, right? And so this is what it's telling. But I wanted this verse right here expressly because it shows you that it's not just a skin disease, but also garments, a house, skin. And so it's talking about clean and unclean. Traditionally, they don't teach about clean and unclean. Oh, well, let me. Okay. Only one place they like to get on to that part, clean and unclean, is during the special time of the month. Y'all got it? All right. It's to degrade the woman, and so they would gladly go into that. But it spoke about the man before it spoke about the woman. Why do you pass by the man when he said if there's an issue of blood, wherever he sits is unclean. Wherever he lies is unclean. Why don't they teach about that? But they go straight to the woman's part, and that's it. And so this is why we go back to the Torah, because we don't have to rely on someone. You don't have to rely on Rabbi to teach you these things, because we read them for ourselves. This is why I love what we do here. We as a community, we know everything that we're going to go into. And everybody has the same opportunity to read what we're going to discuss. One person don't have an edge over another person. When a message is coming forth like I'm doing now, you may, you have to sit and, kind of catch up with what I'm doing or saying. But when we get into the main of our midrash, everybody have the same opportunity. You get to study just like me. You don't need me to tell you what we're going to study. We're going to midrash on. It's right there every week. We have a year's worth. And so, moving on. And so, all right, let's go from here. Leviticus chapter 13. And remember, this was the second sign. When he took his hand out, it became leprous. As white snow. All right, so Moshe's hand was restored. Leviticus 13, verses 1 through 3. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying, when a man has on the skin of his body a swelling, a scab, or a bright spot, and it shall become on the skin a man. This is a man. Y'all know that, right? We're talking about a man, right? A man, right? All right. When it talks, and it shall become on the skin of his body like a leprous infection. Then he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons, the priest. And the priest shall look at the infection on the skin of the body, and if the hair on the infection has turned white, and the infection appears to be deeper than the skin of his body, it is a leprous infection, and the priest shall look at him, the man, and pronounce him unclean. Moving along. Now going back to Leviticus 14, verses 49 through 53. Let's kind of put this together and see what this is really speaking to us. And to cleanse the house. Now, so once he has declared the house, we did the man. Now we're talking about the house. When he goes in and he now must condemn the house. But he has a series of stages. There has to be a 7-day period of time. He comes back from the first day when he saw that there was an issue. Then he scrapes the plaster or whatever the material is. Then he comes back in 7 days. Some of the Talmudim should be thinking now, millennial reign. He comes back, the priest. He comes back. He sprinkles us with the blood 7 times. So here's the 7 trumpets. Here's the earth. Here's the red blood, the sea and the lakes and all the things that are turning red. And so there's another phenomenon that my wife and myself looked at just a couple of days ago, where in the polar caps up in the north, there was ice, and out of the ice was flowing red. And somebody posted it. I don't know, but they got to know somebody like me is going to find it. And so I'm out there looking, and I'm like, goodness, in the polar caps, that water is frozen. But it too was producing red like blood substance. And nobody knew where it was coming from. They didn't have no explanation. They were just like confounded as we were. And so, let's look at what's here. To cleanse the house, he shall take 2 birds and cedar wood and scarlet and hyssop, and he shall slay one of the birds in the earthen vessel over running water, and he shall take the cedar wood and the hyssop and the scarlet and the live bird and dip them in the blood of the slain bird in the running water, and shall sprinkle the house 7 times. And he shall thus cleanse the house with the blood of the bird and the running water and the live bird and with the cedar wood and with the hyssop and with the scarlet. And he shall let the live bird loose outside the city in the open field, and shall atone for the house, and it shall be clean. And so let me draw a quick comparison, and I'm going to run right back here. Remember the woman with the issue of blood, 12 years? She crawled until she got to the hem, as King James would say it, of his garment. But it was actually the wing of his garment. Here's the wing. This is what Yeshua would have worn. Not this color. Not this specific one. But this is a traditional tallit of the Hebrews. And right here on the corner is called a tzitzit. And there is a special design and tie that even in the numbers you can say something that's not heard but only seen. That says, hey, the commandments, because there's a certain number to the whole thing. But what she grabbed was Numbers chapter 15, where it says, and you shall put tzitzits on the corner of your garment so that it is as a remembrance. What is the remembrance? Well, if it was removed, we didn't have nothing to remember. So that's why we never remembered the commandments. But it says that I shall remember and walk and do the commandments of Yahweh. And so when they removed us from where we were, they took away our tradition, gave us theirs. The holidays, the traditions, they replaced them. And so today, we are returning to what we once knew. I can prove that in the scripture. But anyway, I need to move because I'm trying to close this out now. Let's look at what this is. To clean the house, the priest must take 2 birds, and one he kills. He doesn't sever, but he kills. This is Torah. This is the instructions of how to do it, what you do. Okay? You take 2 birds. There's a sacrifice that's getting ready to be made. One you kill, but you do not sever its neck or any part of its body. Over running water, and the blood is to be caught in a wooden or a vessel where it is now mixing with running water. And as it mixes with the running water, there's a second bird. I slowed it down for a reason. I didn't want it to pass anybody. The second bird is then taken fully alive, and he is then dipped into that same vessel of water mixed with blood. And as that living bird is mixed into that vessel, his wings and his body become saturated with the blood and the water. And so as the bird is then taken out to an open field, he is then what? Released. We've already read it. And when he is released, he flies away. But there's something special that is taking place. The blood and the water of the one that was slain for him, he is now spreading his wings over everything he flies, everybody he passes by. He is spreading the blood. He is spreading the water. Everything and everybody is being sprinkled by the blood. And so what does this have to do with us in Yeshua? There was 2 before he was put on the stake or the cross. When they met at Pilate's house, he said, you have a tradition, speaking to the Hebrews, you have a tradition at Passover. Look how it keeps coming up. At Passover, you allow someone who's been incarcerated to go free. And so he brought up 2 names, Barabbas ben Yeshua, or Barabbas, who was accused of the insurrection against the Romans. He was rallying the Hebrews to rise up against them. So they put him in jail, and they was getting rid of him. And so you already know who they chose. They said Yeshua, Messiah. So they chose Yeshua to die over the one who they was really mad at. Pilate said, I've washed my hands of it. I tried to give y'all Yeshua. But the crowd said, we want to destroy or crucify Yeshua and let the other go free. And so here's your 2 birds. Barabbas was able to go free even from the crime against the Roman rule. But he was that bird that was dipped in the blood as well of the ones who died, or Yeshua, who died for us all. And so here we see Yeshua even fulfills the smallest command. And so my last frame, Revelation chapter 8, verse 8 through 13. And the second messenger sounded, and what looked like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood, and a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. And a third of the messengers sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the fountains of the waters, and the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the fountain of water, and the name of the star, and a third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the waters because they became bitter. And the fourth messenger sounded, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them were darkened, and a third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. And I looked, and I heard an eagle flying in the midst of heaven, crying with a loud voice, sound like Isaiah chapter 58, crying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to those dwelling upon the face upon the earth, because the remaining blast of the trumpets of these three messengers who are about to sound. And so let's fully understand what is taking place here. 4 trumpets have blown, and out of 7, 3 remains. The 3 that remain are labeled woe, woe, woe unto the earth. Why? Because these trumpets are worse than the beginning trumpets. And so I've said before that we are now living out the days of the trumpets. And so I believe that we are far into the trumpets. And I'm just going to go ahead and give it to you. I believe that we are in the 6th trumpet. And the 6th trumpet is still have a little bit more to go. Well, how do you know? There's a key element that I'm waiting for. When I see this, then I know we have now just finished. Not completely, it's over, but just finished. And I'm going to tell you what it is, and it will come to your understanding that you already knew that. When the battle of what they call traditionally Battle of Armageddon happens. See, I told you, you already knew that. When that one happens, at the end of that one, Revelation said, and the 6th trumpet is about to end, and the 7th is coming quickly. So I have an idea of where we are, but I have to keep watching the events and the signs of the time. Yeah. So I read the signs of the time. I keep up with them. As much as I can. I hope nothing gets by me, but I keep up. Why? Because I want to know, and I'm not going to go into this. I know no man knows the day nor the hour, but you got to go to Daniel and see what is told in the book of Daniel. And those who have insight shall help many to understand. Nobody knew until Yahweh sent a messenger to Daniel to tell him, to help him understand. So the things that was told to Daniel is still not completely fulfilled. He said, y'all have 70 weeks to get this done. Then he said, know that Yeshua will be cut off in the 69th week. There's things that we have to talk about if you really want to understand. So we've already gone through 69 and a half, because right after that he says, and in the middle of the week, sacrifices will be cut off. Well, Yeshua was cut off 30 AD. I'll just give you my time that I understand. I've done extensive research. So if you will accept that from me, that would be great. We know that he didn't live past 33. Just a little bit past, right? So if I'm giving you 30 AD, that's a smooth timeline for me. And then 70 AD, which is documented history, Israel was no more. And then once they went into Israel, where did Israel go? Now the scripture says, Yahweh said, I was so angry with them, I took out 2/3 of Israel. That's not 100%. So where did that 1/3 end up going? Into Africa. You got to go to the maps. Maps before 1700 years, 1740 something, 17. You can see maps with the names of the Israel salted throughout Africa. I thought it was just Judah. I went back and saw another map that another brother online was showing. I'm like, whoa. There's Gad, there's Zebulon, there's, I saw the different names. So I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. So y'all see why I started with what I started with. That's far as they can get us, because there's a 400 year that they're dealing with, and some people in high seats know something, and they're like, okay, we got to stop them from connecting. But let me go on, because I'm at the end. I don't want to keep going. All right, so Revelation is going to bring in the remaining trumpets of the 7, and when the 7 are completed. We also have Revelation chapter 16 that gives us 7 bowls, and he says that the earth, he will pour the bowls of evil upon the earth. And so we're seeing these things take place, and the events of the sign of the time, and we just have to know that Yahweh is already working on our behalf, and it is in our favor. Can we give Yahweh a praise? Hallelujah.
I gotta do it, y'all. To he that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. And to them who may not know this, it's not a brick building, but we are the churches. The same body.